What if Robert Baratheon relinquished the crown and became a sellsword? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Robert watches the short-lived King of the Isles drop down to one knee and pledge his fealty to him. Though Balon Greyjoy was doubtlessly glaring daggers at him, he dared not raise his head and show it. Instead, he mumbles the words of loyalty, ending the Greyjoy Rebellion. As news spreads across the castle, there is a celebration in the Pyke, and while Robert initially joins them, he cannot help but feel a strange longing. A part of him wishes this rebellion might have continued for years more. But he is instantly ashamed of himself as he recalls the destruction the Ironborn wrought. And yet, he still cannot help but wish. With the end of this war, he must now return to King's Landing to rule once again. And yet, he finds little excitement there, little fulfillment. While Jon Arrny repeatedly assures him that it is a great honor, he finds no joy in it. There he spends his days listening to his council argue, the smallfolk complain, and the lords come to him squabbling like children. It is kingship, Jon says repeatedly, as if it will make it any less dull. While some like Stannis and Jon Arryn take this well, Robert cannot ever sit still. The war was the most alive he'd ever felt in years. While at the Red Keep, he found himself indulging more and more in wine and food, but that was a pale glow to what he felt here. Already he can start to feel his strength slipping away from that food. All these thoughts remain in his mind as he lies in his bed. The more he thinks about it, the more the thought frightens him. Eventually, he rises from his bed and heads to the balcony, overlooking the sea. There he remains until morning, when Jon Arryn finds him. To his surprise, Robert looks more alive than ever, and orders that all the gathered lords assemble in Pyke's Great Hall. Northmen, Stormlanders, Westermen, and Ironborn are just a few among the many who gather here to hear the king's words, and what they hear is shocking.
I am here to announce that I will not return to King's Landing. This may well be my last decree as king. I am here today to announce my desire to abdicate.
A gasp ripples from the crowd, and 100 questions are asked at once. Ned and Jon Arryn both look horrified, stepping up to speak.
My lord, are you sure that is prudent? Without you, who shall rule?
The same man who's been ruling already. Don't flatter me, Jon. You've done more for the Seven Kingdoms than I ever could. I'm not fit to rule, nor do I want to.
Robert, think about what you're doing. If you were to leave now, the realm would fall into chaos. You would throw your entire succession into chaos.
What is the question? I have a son. He's young, but I am certain you lot can raise him well. If you truly wish to have a stag on the throne, crown him. If not, then feel free to claim it yourself, Lord Arryn.
You know I cannot do that. The crown is your right.
What right is that? Because I smashed some bastard's chest with my hammer. I began this rebellion to save my beloved and to kill that damn silver-haired bastard. I did one, and the other is beyond my reach. Now, all I have left is my hammer and my desire to use it. My mind is made up. From this day on, I name Joffrey Baratheon as ruler of the Seven Kingdoms, and Jon Arryn as Lord Protector. He shall remain in that position until such time that my son comes of age, and I expect all of you to honor this decree and pledge allegiance here and now.
The gathered lords and ladies spend no time offering their fealty to the new king. Though Ned, Jon, and a few others spend the day trying to convince Robert to reconsider, there is no changing his mind, and by the end of the week, he boards one of the ships and sails to the Free Cities. As he stands atop its prow, he looks over to the sea, wondering what future adventures await. He lands in Tyrosh and quickly gets his start, serving as a mercenary in a city bustling with them. Robert certainly catches everyone's attention. There is no mistaking the former king, and many whisper about him, but he lets them talk. It isn't difficult to find work. With Robert's legendary reputation, monstrous strength, and natural talent for war, many are eager to hire him. He bounces around as a household guard, a fighting pit champion, and a city watchman, before settling on fighting as a sellsword in the disputed lands. He bounces from company to company, city to city, simply serving wherever the greatest battles are fought. While not loyal to anyone, his skills are unmatched, and everyone is still eager to hire him. For years, he becomes a legendary commander, winning almost every battle he fights in and gathering soldiers around him. Men who have fought with him come to see him as a leader, and soon they urge him to form his own company. But instead, Robert finds himself drawn to the Golden Company. Robert Baratheon strides through the camp with the easy confidence of a veteran. By now, he's a recognizable figure to the men. Many step aside respectfully, others are less friendly. He recognizes a few who ended up in exile because of him, but offers them a polite smile. That is until one particular exile steps forward.
How dare you show your face here, usurper? Jon, I'm hardly a usurper anymore. As you can see, I don't have a crown or a throne. It's good to see you. It's not often that men I tried to kill manage to survive and curse me.
And how can I not with all the shame you've brought on the Seven Kingdoms? You kill our rightful prince, you steal his throne, and then you dare to toss it aside like a used cloak. Is there no end to your foolishness?
I see news traveled here too. Although for an exile you seem concerned about the state of the Seven Kingdoms. I didn't realize we kept old grudges here. Aren't all your mistakes washed away when I swear some oath?
Robert barely has time to finish before Connington's fist strikes his jaw. It is a solid blow, but Robert only staggers back a step.
This isn't the Night's Watch. Here grudges are settled with blood.
Oh, even better.
With a growl, he grabs Connington by the collar and drives his knee into his gut. Jon thrashes and tries to headbutt him, but Robert redirects him to a nearby campfire, where he knocks a pot over. Men scatter aside, screaming for the captain. Cursing, Jon grabs it and swings it at Robert, the iron pot leaving him tumbling over. As he tries to swing it again, though, Robert grabs him by the throat and begins to lift him over his head and throws him onto the ground. Despite that, Jon does not give up and comes up at him again. He fights like a man possessed, his blows wild yet fueled by years of bitterness. But Robert is a beast, a mountain of muscle and raw strength. He seizes Connington's wrist, twists it savagely, and sends the man sprawling into the dirt. With a swift movement, he draws his dagger and presses it against Connington's throat.
You've got guts, but you're still the same fool who lost the Battle of the Bells. Now I'm gonna finally see how those look on the dirt. Enough!
We do not settle grudges like common brigands.
The Lord Captain advances between them, accompanied by Harry Strickland. Both have their hands on their swords.
What in the seven hells do you want, Baratheon?
I want in. I've had my fill of ruling the Seven Kingdoms. I belong on the battlefield, not on some damned throne.
And you expect us to just let you in? You think I'm the only man who ended up here because of you? They'd murder you in your sleep. That would be unwise. The world knows Robert Baratheon's name. If we reject him, we risk looking weak. If we kill him, well, a lot of our success rides on our reputation. A mark like that is detrimental. If we take him in, a man like him under our banner could be useful.
Toyne studies Robert carefully, his fingers drumming against the pommel of his sword.
We are not beggars. If you fight as one of us. No special treatment, no titles. Just another sellsword. Do you accept that?
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Very well then. No more fighting then. If you have anything else, best let it out now.
Robert glances over at Jon one last time and backhands him with a mailed fist. The Griffin Knight stumbles and glares at Robert. He stands up, brushes himself off, then rams one knee up between the former king's legs. This time, Robert falls to his knee.
There. That should be enough for me.
Thankfully, the two do not need to stomach each other for long. Just a few short years later, Jon Connington is exiled by Miles Toyne for supposedly stealing money from the coffers. This leaves Robert as the rising star within the Golden Company. They continue to soar high on the battlefield, with Robert's legend only growing. After Miles Toyne passes away, putting the company under Harry Strickland, Robert serves as his strong right hand, preferring to focus on the battle rather than handling contracts. He instead focuses on leading troops. However, his mere presence is a boost for the company. Not only is he an effective warrior and commander, but his story is fascinating, and men from all across the Free Cities want to hear about it. Singers craft songs about the king without a crown, and the sellsword lord, while archons, lords, and princes all invite the Golden Company to their domains to meet with him. These create valuable contracts for Harry in the future. But while Robert might be living the life he dreamed of, across the narrow sea, the situation is anything but happy. Robert's departure initially caused fury in the House Lannister, who felt themselves slighted by this, yet the opportunity to rule soon overruled any anger they might have felt. With him gone, Joffrey was the clear successor, and a far more malleable figure. Cersei wastes no time in solidifying her rule over King's Landing. Many of Robert's old courtiers are replaced with Lannister loyalists. Among those forced to depart are Renly and Stannis, replaced instead with Lannister men. The only man of the old guard who remains is Jon Arryn, who cannot be replaced as protector of the realm. However, the old lord now stands alone, and is in no position to seriously challenge them, as he is surrounded by a sea of Lannisters. He can only watch in horror as Joffrey grows up nothing like his father. Though bloodthirsty, he is a coward and a poor warrior, and he lacks any of Robert's charisma, affability, or generosity. But it is more than just his personality. Jon also sees how different he seems physically to Robert. He lacks the black hair, burly build, or even blue eyes. Instead, he looks almost identical to the many young Lannisters overrunning the Red Keep. Their constant presence was meant as a mockery, but soon becomes his clue as Jon Arryn begins his investigation, tracking back the Baratheon's lineage to Aegon's conquest, and what he finds is in all their marriages, they report the same thing, which is that all Baratheons, even those intermarried with Targaryens, have dark hair. Little does he know that Varys has secretly ensured that Jon Arryn would come to this conclusion to further destabilize the shaky Lannister rule. Suddenly, the realization hits him. Joffrey is not Robert's son, and that means his claim to the Iron Throne is entirely illegitimate. Yet he knows that this information is dangerous, and if the Lannisters ever catch a whiff of it, they will bury it and ensure no one ever finds it. Arryn flees the capital under the cover of night, taking a ship to Dragonstone, where he informs Stannis of this, making him the true-born heir. The pair secretly begin gathering allies, with Jon Arryn raising the veil and sending ravens to Hoster Tully, Ned Stark, and Renly Baratheon. All of these lords have long distrusted the Lannisters, and this provides the perfect excuse to attack. Renly has long resented Cersei for removing him from the small council. Ned never truly trusted them, and Hoster has remained close with Jon Arryn and Ned Stark. Meanwhile, the Lannisters can secure their position with the Reach by promising Joffrey to Margaery, and even give the Ironborn free rein to invade the north and Riverlands and recreate their old empire. In the depths of the Red Keep, Varys receives word of Jon's flight, these growing hostilities, and the possibilities. He sends a single message to Essos for Jon Connington's ears. Westeros is in chaos, and opportunity is at hand. Suddenly, Jon Connington appears before the Golden Company as they prepare their latest campaign in Volantis. But when he arrives in their encampment, he does not come alone. A teenage boy is by his side, whom he introduces as Aegon VI. Jon explains his secret plot with Miles Toyen about secretly crowning Aegon, which Harry confirms. He takes particular pleasure in telling Robert how his heir is not even his son, and how he's been cuckolded. The boy he thinks is his son has turned into a monster, and now half the realm, including his brothers and friends, has risen against him. However, by the time he finishes telling this story, Robert actually laughs.
And is that why you're here? To tell us and get us to pledge our 10,000 men to your cause? So your little princeling can claim his crown?
Why? Do you feel some loyalty towards that little monster you put on the throne?
Not even slightly. But that doesn't mean I'm gonna let you take this company and sail west for this little adventure of yours.
A few of the officers nod in agreement, but others look at Robert curiously, wondering what he has to say.
Then you've gone senile in your exile, murderer. The commoners will rally to my side. They've hated you. You admit it yourself. They constantly rebelled against you.
Ah, they did. And do you think they told themselves they'd best get another dragon? No. Some wanted concessions, others wanted power, or simply to spite me. When I put them down, or when they got what they wanted, they were happy enough to go back to their fields. Mark my words, boy. No one is rising up on your behalf.
I have the birthright.
You think you'll take the Iron Throne just because you have the right name? It took me a year to win the damn thing, and another 3 to break the ones who still resisted. And make no mistake, boy, you aren't me.
Harry Strickland frowns, seeing the truth in Robert's words. He refuses to commit the Golden Company to Aegon's cause. Some of the company sees sense in Robert's leadership. Others remain loyal to the dream of a Targaryen restoration. Blades are drawn. Jon Connington does not waver. He steps between Robert and Aegon, eyes burning with contempt. In a moment, he has his sword out and pointed at him. Robert says nothing. He takes a long drink from his mug and then suddenly flips the table forward that it stands upright. Though Jon manages to sidestep it, Robert uses that time to shove the nearest loyalist aside, wrestles the man's sword free, and rushes at him. Around him, the other officers loyal to Robert rally around him. Harry crawls under a table as Jon and Robert meet blades for the first time in almost 15 years. Jon moves fast and hard, trying to press Robert and not give him a chance to react. He scores a shallow cut across his chest, but the next thrust is batted aside. However, the former king isn't used to fighting with a sword, so Jon can dart back and slash at him again. He rains down attacks on him, stepping closer and closer to the Baratheon. Jon's eyes blaze with fury as he runs him through the side. The blow is enough to send Robert stumbling, but he catches himself. However, it doesn't stop the chair that Jon smashes against his back. For a moment, it seems like Robert might finally fall over, but as Jon prepares to deliver the final blow, a massive hand shoots forward, grabs the Griffin Knight by the throat, and throws him against the table with such force that the table slams right back into its legs. He turns toward Aegon, who fumbles with his sword, and Robert looms over him. But as their eyes meet, he can hear Jon laughing.
Tell me, Robert, will you kill him yourself this time? You need Tywin Lannister to do it for you.
The words strike a nerve. Robert hesitates, and that moment is all Connington needs. He seizes Aegon and makes for the horses. Before he can follow, 2 members of the Golden Company lunge at Robert. Both men are easily put down. But by the time he does, the pair are long gone, with any officers loyal to them. Over the day, fighting breaks out across the camps, and more men trickle out, hurrying out of them until almost half the company is gone. Robert curses them as fools, but knows they no longer have the numbers to press their claim alone. With those who remain, Robert takes command, his voice booming across the camp.
We sail west, not for Aegon, but for Jon Arryn's rebellion. If you want to see your homes again, then let me lead you there.
The wind howls as Robert Baratheon steps onto the banks of the war-torn Riverlands. The banners of his forces flutter behind him as he advances towards Riverrun. Though he's just arrived, he's already heard the reports. After Jon Arryn's escape, war became inevitable, and both sides wasted no time in gathering their forces. Stannis and Jon Arryn sailed north to the Vale to rally the banners there, while Ned began mobilizing his men in the north. This should have given them a substantial army to take on the Lannisters, but a sudden attack from the Ironborn spoiled that plan. They raided all across the northern coast, capturing villages in the Stony Shore, besieged Bear Island, and threatening the coastal houses, limiting how many men Ned could take. Meanwhile, Renly found himself surrounded as he fought a desperate battle in the Stormlands, with a Crownland host and half the Reach army bearing down on him. The other half joined Tywin Lannister up in the Riverlands. Though he and Stannis have fought them in a series of battles, the Old Lion remains relentless and makes a slow but steady advance towards Riverrun. Reports indicate they've already lost Pink Maiden, the Salt Pans, Maidenpool, and Stony Step. Ned only recently arrived and helped reinforce them, allowing Stannis to halt the Lannister advance across the Red Fork and begin organizing a counterattack. As Robert arrives in Riverrun, he sees a familiar sight of a military encampment with familiar banners. The Crowned Stag, the Direwolf, and the White Falcon, along with all their vassals and bannermen. A part of him feels like he's back in his days in the Rebellion. He already sent word ahead of his arrival, so they are welcomed in. Welcomed, but not warmly. Many men-at-arms whisper among themselves as Robert's 5,000-strong army walks through their camp. Most of it is cautious and uncertain, but others don't hide their disdain, scowling at him. Any hope he expects for the lords to be any different is soon dashed once he enters the Great Hall of Riverrun. Jon Arryn's face is weathered and sad as he greets him. Stannis is sullen and scowling, but the most hurtful is Ned. He does not look angry or even upset. He appears disappointed and distant.
You've come back at last. Westeros burns, and now you return.
I was never fit to rule, Jon. I did what I had to. I left because
you didn't want the responsibility, brother. So you settled it all with us.
I am here now to fix that mistake. I brought my forces here to help.
So it seems. Very well. I suppose we cannot turn down our aid. Very well. We shall begin organizing this counterattack.
With Tywin's forces temporarily pushed back, Robert offers to lead the first charge. As their forces prepare for battle, Robert has the Golden Company cross a fjord and attack the Lannister camp. The movement is surprising, and the Lannisters are temporarily taken off guard, but they quickly rally and push them back. A standstill develops as both sides struggle for dominance and funnel reinforcements into this area. The fighting goes back and forth throughout the day, with neither side being able to get the better of each other. That is until Robert unleashes the elephants. While they fought around the camp, the former king had Harry secretly guide the elephants down a fjord downstream, away from prying eyes. As they approach, the battle descends into chaos, and the Lannisters must withdraw. With their hold over the fjords weakening, the rebel forces pour through, and this retreat quickens. Tywin withdraws back to Pink Maiden, reinforcing his hold there. Edmure Tully and the Blackwater keep him under siege, while the rest of the Royalist army marches south. They know Renly's forces are the most vulnerable right now, and must reinforce him if he is to remain in the war. A Reach force is blocking their path from the Fair Market. Thankfully, this army is led by Mace Tyrell. As he advances from the south, Sir Mark Piper and Carol Vance raid his supply lines and ambush his scouts. The Blackfish joins them, leaving the army temporarily blinded as they lose track of their scouts. The first to reach them are the relatively fresh Northmen, who charge directly into their defensive lines. The Reachmen are prepared, though, and beat back this charge. Stannis, meanwhile, gathers what few horsemen he has and a large force of foot soldiers to clash with their left, hitting them again and again, but not overcommitting. Instead, his job is to simply keep them pinned. From the right, Lord Arryn leads the charge with the famed Vale Knights. They crash onto the Reachmen's left flank, but here, Loras Tyrell and Matthias Rowan organize their defenses, forming a schiltron with their infantry for their cavalry to regroup and then charge out once again. In the center, Mace orders a charge, using his superior numbers to begin pushing the Northmen back. It is slow going as the warriors rally around Ned Stark and fight with a fury unmatched. Many Reachmen fall before their axes and hammers, before they are slowly pushed back. Mace continues to pour in men, ordering them forward, and soon the pace begins to quicken. The Stark men begin to retreat, forming a gap in the Reach lines. Mace believes that the rebels have already committed their entire army. That is until the Golden Company arrives. Robert leads half the infantry and all the cavalry in a mad charge through this gap, and hits them with their flanks while others assist Stannis. The rest of their infantry and longbowmen hang back, reinforcing Jon Arryn as they rain arrows down on the tightly packed Schiltron. This soon breaks and allows the Vale Knights to sweep the field. Mace manages to retreat in good order, if only because Garland Tyrell's excellent handling of the situation, but the road to the Stormlands is clear. But as they march out, conflict already begins to arise with some of the lords. Many of them are still not pleased with working with the king who abandoned them, as they see it. While they agree to march south with him, they insist he ride at the vanguard alone. Few wish to throw their lot in with sellswords, much less risk their men in battle. Robert is naturally incensed by this, and sees it as them valuing the lives of his Golden Company less than their men. He is quick to remind them that his men are the best trained soldiers, and that they are the reason their offensive even succeeded one night after getting drunk. Several lords nearly come to blows with Robert before Ned Stark pulls him aside to ease tensions.
Fucking fools. Who are they to lecture me on warfare? I've fought more battles in the last few years than half of them have in a lifetime.
You don't think we were fighting our own battles, Robert? Things were not easy here.
Yes, I know. Everyone is quick to remind me of that failure. Of how I failed to see that my own son wasn't my own.
You think that they're angry about that? None of us saw that coming. But we were here to deal with it. Robert, people are angry because you abandoned us. You allowed that monster to rule while you played sellsword in Essos.
Did you expect me to just run back and butcher my own kin on the throne?
No. But we at least hoped you would share our plight and speak out. We followed you during your rebellion because you shared our pain. You were with us in the mud, sharing our cups. You appointed them, and everything he did was with your blessing. And you did nothing, even as we were forced to become rebels.
A silence settles between them, thick with unsaid words. Robert clenches his fists, the weight of his judgment pressing down on him. He had imagined this moment many times, but he had never expected it to wound so deeply.
Damn it, Ned. I took the throne, and it took everything from me. You saw what I became.
And what of us? We fought your wars too. We bled for them. We bled while the Lannisters tightened their grip, while Joffrey turned into something we could not control.
The words strike deep. Robert has faced countless men in battle, but none have wounded him as much as his old friend just did. He turns away from them, looking at the assembled men, his would-be allies, yet strangers to him. Their faces are filled with doubt, some with outright disdain. Robert slowly nods his head and agrees to lead the vanguard. The war is long and brutal, as the weight of the Stormlands is filled with picket defenses and raiding parties aiming to wear down their armies. Robert is given the worst of the battles. His sellswords are used as the first charge, the first over the walls, and the first to cross dangerous terrain. But Robert does not shy away. He leads from the front, hammer in hand, smashing through. He fights like a man with something to prove, and he does not stop until his foes are crushed beneath his strength. In time, the rebellion turns in their favor. The battles are costly, but victories mount. The army presses deeper, and just in time too, as Renly is trapped in Storm's End. Renly's forces are dwindling, food is scarce, and morale is at its lowest. The Reach forces led by Randyll Tarly have maintained a tight grip around the castle, their trebuchets pounding the mighty walls. Robert takes a deep breath as he prepares himself. Randyll was the only man who ever bested him, so he must be careful. He leads the sellswords out, but to his surprise, Ned provides him with a force of Northmen from the start. Robert charges into the enemy ranks with his hammer swinging. Jon Arryn comes from the other side and supports this charge. Randyll's lines don't break though, and their knights help keep them from being fully surrounded. Each time they try to close the encirclement, the Reachmen ride out and smash their lines. However, soon enough the sound of elephants can be heard as they appear from the forest. But rather than slam into the enemy lines, they hit those in the siege lines. The weakened besiegers are unprepared for the elephants, who are supported by light infantry. A hole is soon opened, allowing Renly's men to sortie out. They help complete the encirclement, crushing the Reach forces who are forced to retreat in disarray. In a final desperate push, Robert personally leads an assault on the enemy command tent, forcing Mace Tyrell to retreat. Though their reunion is tense, the Baratheons stand united once more. With the fall of Storm's End, the tide turns against the Lannisters. Robert and his forces march north toward the capital. The Lannister forces, though still formidable, are reeling from their losses. Tywin Lannister tries to rally his forces and tries to force a breakout in the Riverlands. Though he manages to escape, Edmure and Lord Blackwood manage to delay his forces and get word to Robert. Hearing this, Jon Arryn orders a march out forward. They ride hard, moving through the night, and no matter the weather, as they know Tywin has a shorter route to pass through. By some miracle, the rebels reach King's Landing first and begin the siege. Trebuchets and siege towers batter the walls as Robert prepares for the final assault. They spend days pummeling the defenses, weakening them enough for their forces to pass, and yet the defenses of King's Landing are sturdier than expected. They gather whatever forces they have and concentrate them on the walls. This soon turns into a bloodbath that temporarily beats the armies back. Unfortunately, time is not on their side, as soon enough, they receive word that the Lannister relief force is coming up from behind. They have already begun clashing with their outriders, and will arrive within a few days. Cursing their luck, Robert orders another attack, throwing everything he has before the Lannisters arrive. Northmen, Rivermen, Valemen, and Stormlanders all rush up the ladders. At their head is Robert, who fights like a man possessed. He sweeps his warhammer back and forth, clearing large sections of the wall. But men begin to mob him, and luckily a few find the chinks within his armor, and the former king takes a dozen wounds before the gates are opened. Once that is done, though, the battle is all but over. The army pours through the city, and the Red Keep doesn't have the army to hold them back, and soon falls before them. With their forces inside, Tywin Lannister realizes he does not have the manpower to take the city, and the remaining armies begin to hunt him down. Robert looks up at the Iron Throne. Although he only sat on it a few times, the sight is burned into his memory. But he turns away and walks down the steps to a waiting maester to treat his wounds. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.